Chapter 337 Kill the Giant Beast in the Swamp? Hell yeah, brother Fan, I knew you were not dead. Zhang Xiaohou gave Mo Fan a great hug, although his body was soaked with smelly mud. It had been 2 years since they had bid each other farewell in Bo City. When Mo Fan learned that his friend had come specifically just to look for him, he felt a surge of warmth rising in his heart. Mo Fan knew how dangerous Danjing Lake was, and yet Zhang Xiaohou was willing to come on his own. He was quite speechless about his friend's recklessness. Returning to the cave, Li Man fell asleep, as the poison in her body was not cleansed yet. "Oh right, brother Fan, this is for you." Zhang Xiaohou slowly took out 2 containers from his backpack and shoved them into Mo Fan's hands. "What are these?" Mo Fan took a glance at the containers, but he could not tell what they contained. Mo Fan was rather familiar with the containers. They were commonly used to contain soul essences. "There are 2 soul essences inside," Zhang Xiaohou blurted out excitedly. "Boss Zong Kong told me that your soul is in a critical state, and you'll need a huge amount of soul essences to maintain it. I brought 2 soul essences from Bi City along my way here." Knowing Mo Fan was still alive was the most exciting good news to Zhang Xiaohou. After all, he had treated him like his own brother. "Where did you get the money from?" Mo Fan held the 2 containers. He could feel something flowing in his eyes. Mo Fan was barely able to retain his normal appearance since his soul had a breakdown. However, the demon element was extremely unstable. He did not dare to return to the safe zones yet, not until his soul was completely stabilized. However, he could not help but admit that it was quite lonely living out here. Mo Fan was incredibly touched knowing that Zhang Xiaohou had come all the way here looking for him, and yet had still prepared 2 soul essences for him. It was true that Mo Fan was in desperate need of soul essences, which was the main reason he stayed at the valley here in Danjing Lake. He had no choice but to maintain his fragile soul with a huge amount of soul essences, and the source of them was the giant lizards. He had no idea how many giant lizards he had killed so far, and how many soul essences he had acquired. As a matter of fact, Zhang Xiaohou's servant-class soul essences were no longer effective for him. However, when he recalled that his bro had come all the way here just to give him the soul essences, he could feel his eyes getting wet. Mo Fan always thought he was a heartless person, but surprisingly he was incredibly touched by Zhang Xiaohou's actions. "Money is never the problem. Besides, I'm more or less a soldier now. By the way, is your body okay now? I was so worried when I heard the details from Boss Zong Kong." Zhang Xiaohou asked him, "Take these back. Sell them and get yourself a piece of good defensive equipment." Mo Fan did not want to take the gift. Although the gift was not too useful for him, the intentions behind it mattered more than anything else, especially to someone like Mo Fan, who had been living a lonely life in the wild for more than 3 months. The servant-class soul essences would still work, but Mo Fan could easily acquire them. Zhang Xiaohou had most likely spent all his savings on the 2 soul essences. "I already have some equipment. Boss Zong Kong told me that you need lots of soul essences. Just make them count, since I've managed to find you. Brother Fan, just focus on treating your injury, I'll gather the soul essences for you. To be honest, those giant lizards are nothing against me. I've also taken a soul container from the army. I know it's rare to find soul essences, but I can kill a lot of them. I believe it would eventually appear." Zhang Xiaohou had come prepared. Judging from the things he had brought, he was definitely planning to stay for quite a long time. "You little prick. All right, stop boasting how capable you are now. I do have my own hands and legs. What do you think I've been doing for the past 3 months, cursed Mo Fan. "That's right, let's kill the beasts together. With us working together, I believe even the Deathbringer of Danjing Lake has to clear a path for us, ha ha ha." Zhang Xiaohou burst out laughing. Mo Fan smacked his lips. He was hesitating if he should tell Zhang Xiaohou the truth about the Deathbringer of Danjing Lake. On second thought, he decided not to tell him the truth, so he would not destroy his confidence. Besides, Zhang Xiaohou had come at the perfect time, as he desperately needed a helper. Mo Fan had been camping in the valley for a few days. His target was actually the monster at the center of the swamp. It was a commander-level demon beast, which was currently injured. Mo Fan had no idea how it was injured, but he did fight against it in his demonized state, thus he was confident that he could kill it. Mo Fan desperately needed a commander-level soul, either a soul remnant or a soul essence. The injured commander-level demon beast was Mo Fan's only hope. Otherwise, if the demon element were to lose control again, his soul would definitely crumble, as it would no longer be able to endure the overwhelming burden. The demon element did give him incredible strength, in exchange for the energy from his body and soul. In fact, Mo Fan did not run away from Zhang Kong because he had lost control of his body, but rather because he clearly knew that the military would not be able to provide a sufficient amount of soul essences for him, thus he had decided to find them himself. With the help of the little loach pendant, Mo Fan could easily collect soul essences. All he needed to do was kill demon beasts. He was able to collect soul remnants, which would eventually be refined into soul essences. If he were lucky enough, he could even get soul essences straight away, which definitely would aid his recovery. To Mo Fan's surprise, the first soul breakdown almost cost him his life. Mo Fan had no choice but to massacre the demon beasts in his demonized state. The number of giant lizards at Dongjing Lake was already overflowing. The military had plans to control their numbers, and had been encouraging magicians and hunters to eliminate them. Mo Fan just happened to have no choice but to do a kind deed for society, and somehow ended up as the infamous Deathbringer of Dongjing Lake. If his predictions were on point, he would experience a strong soul breakdown around a week from now. Mo Fan had awakened 4 different elements, thus there were a total of 4 soul breakdowns. He had survived the previous 3, but his guts were telling him that the final one would be significantly stronger than those before. The little loach pendant had refined lots of servant class and warrior level soul essences for him. However, Mo Fan still felt like he needed a commander level soul to increase the odds. A commander-level demon beast had a higher chance of dropping a soul essence. Even if the injured commander-level demon beast ended up not dropping a soul essence, its soul remnant would still contain a significant amount of energy. Killing a commander-level demon beast was not an easy task, even though it was already severely injured. Mo Fan began to run out of patience. Once the commander-level demon beast recovered from its injury, there was no way Mo Fan would be able to kill it, even with the power from his demon element. Luckily, Zhang Xiaohou had come so far to look for him, and there was also a potentially powerful female magician here to help him, increasing his chances of killing the commander-level demon beast. "We're going to kill the monster at the center of the swamp," Mo Fan straight away made his intention clear. "The what now?" Zhang Xiaohu's eyes went wide as his thoughts filled with the image of the hunter group being swallowed alive by the giant shadow. Chapter 338 A Perfect Plan. The giant lizards were amphibious. They could live in caves, sleep in the mud, were able to live off vegetables, and feast on meat at other times. Such an all-around beast species was troublesome to deal with. It was difficult to find their weakness due to their strong adaptability. It also meant that their reproductive ability was fairly outstanding. There were only a few giant lizards here 40 to 50 years ago, and now, they were enough to queue up for a sunbathe. One thing for sure, the creature hiding at the middle of the swamp was also a kind of the giant lizard species. The razor-tailed drake which Mo Fan had seen before was a giant lizard mixed with the lineage of dragons. In comparison, the one he was targeting now had no wings, and its size was significantly bigger than the razor-tailed drake. Over the past few days, the trio was trying to figure out a plan to kill the enormous beast at the center of the swamp. Li Man had returned from her regular exploration with bad news. 2 groups of hunters were planning to enter the valley soon. Li Man had blocked the entrance they were planning to use, so she had barely delayed their plans by a day or 2. "Looks like we'll have to make our move tomorrow," said Mo Fan. They would not be able to stop the hunters from feeding themselves to the beast. Besides, that would ruin their ambitious plan of killing the beast. Furthermore, Mo Fan felt that if they were to wait, the beast's shell would regrow fairly soon. In the weak illumination from the bonfire, Mo Fan started drawing on the ground with a stick as he laid out the plan. Firstly, the Xuanwu lizard is our biggest problem. Even though it was severely injured, its strength is still too much for us to handle. We can't attack it without making sure that everything is in place. It is our main target, and it is an expert at disguising itself. Don't judge it by looking at its enormous size. I can assure you that it has a higher intelligence than the magicians that it has eaten alive. Mo Fan drew the beast's position on the soil. Zhang Xiaohou nodded heavily. The Xuanwu lizard was indeed very cunning. It never attacked just when the magicians showed themselves. It waited patiently until they stood on its back. The groups of hunters were quite experienced, and were fully prepared, too. If it were a normal encounter, one or two of them would be able to escape. However, they were completely wiped out in an instant. We have no hope of defeating it on our own. However, there's something that could turn the impossible into the possible. Mo Fan drew another area of the swamp with the stick. The zone was where Li Man was on her own before, the exact place where she was poisoned without her knowing it. Mo Fan glanced at Li Man and saw that she was in deep thought. He chuckled and said, "That's right, the Xuanwu lizard is not the only thing living in the Shijiao Valley. There's also a very strong poisonous bug. Brother Fan, are you implying that we should have the poisonous bug attack the Xuanwu lizard?" Zhang Xiaohu's eyes flickered. They had zero chance of winning if they fought the Xuanwu lizard head-on. It was clearly a commander-level demon beast, and even an injured commander-level demon beast could kill them instantly. But it would be a different case if they had some external help. Li Man cast a surprised glance at Mo Fan. She hadn't thought this caveman would be so daring. It was something that hunters used a lot, to have some beast do their dirty work. As such, they would be the ultimate winner of the situation. Not many people would dare to use it on a commander-level demon beast, as they would end up being eaten if they made a careless mistake. "Have you gathered enough information about that poisonous bug?" asked Li Man. "Almost," answered Mo Fan. "Almost?" Li Man pulled a long face. "Either way, it's useful in this situation." Mo Fan was not willing to explain further. "The plan is simple. We'll lure the poisonous bug to the Xuanwu lizard. Its poison is strong enough to weaken a commander-level demon beast. All we have to do is let the Xuanwu lizard kill the poisonous bug, and we'll utilize its poison to kill the Xuanwu lizard." Zhang Xiaohou nodded quickly. He was utterly convinced that the plan would work. He asked after a slight pause, "So, who's going to lure it to the gigantic beast?" Mo Fan and Li Man did not respond. The cave suddenly fell silent, apart from the crackling noise from the bonfire. Zhang Xiaohou pointed at his nose and said in a rather stiff tone, "You're asking me to do it?" Mo Fan and Li Man nodded simultaneously. Neither of them had any convenient movement abilities, while on the other hand, Zhang Xiaohou had both the wind element and the earth element, and he had learned useful techniques in tracking enemies and concealing his presence in the military. He was definitely the perfect candidate for the difficult mission. Zhang Xiaohou knew he had nowhere to escape to. He murmured under his breath, "Why do I feel like you both reached that conclusion before this? We will bring the poisonous bug and the Xuanwu lizard to this specific location. Therefore, we need someone luring the poisonous bug, and another person baiting the Xuanwu lizard." Mo Fan poked at a spot close to the center of the swamp with the stick. Zhang Xiaohou nodded. On second thought, Zhang Xiaohou was puzzled. He blurted out, "So what's next after we bring the poisonous bug and the Xuanwu lizard there? Are we going to be flanked from both sides? We're going to be killed first in between them." The plan was perfect, but its execution was bizarre. The biggest problem of baiting the demon beasts to fight one another was to ensure a safe escape from the situation. Did they really think the beasts would just run into one another and battle fiercely while the bait simply turned a corner and ran away? Enough with the jokes, this wasn't filming a movie. It did work for the female protagonist in Jurassic Park IV, but Zhang Xiaohou would not dare to use the same trick himself. "That's the question." Mo Fan coughed and pointed at the spot he poked before. "Have you thought why we're luring them to that specific location?" Mo Fan sternly said, "Li Man and I have investigated the surroundings. There's a cave at the end of this path. Below it is a dried underground passage, which runs under the entire valley, including the bottom of the swamp, to the center of the valley." Mo Fan drew another path, which connected to the swamp at the center. Zhang Xiaohou immediately came to a realization and blurted out, "Brother Fan, so you're saying that someone will be receiving us there?" "That's right. Once we lure the Xuanwu lizard and the poisonous bug to the spot, the ground there is rather fragile. A few destructive intermediate spells would blast a hole open. It will then drain the mud like a vortex, and we'll be able to ride it and make our way to the underground passage," explained Mo Fan. "Ha ha, a crafty escape. The demon beasts will fight one another, and we'll even have the time to change into clean clothing before retrieving our loot." Muahahaha. Zhang Xiaohou burst into great laughter. Brother Fan is as intelligent as usual. It turned out that everything was under his control all along. As the two were filled with excitement, Li Man was silent throughout the entire discussion. Overall, the plan did seem viable. But here came the problem. If Zhang Xiaohou was assigned to lure the poisonous bug, who was going to bait the Xuanwu lizard? Chapter 339 Little poisonous bug? The underground passage was just a narrow cave located a layer below the valley. The swamp was on the surface, and below it was an underground river with a layer of rock in between. Li Man had donned all her equipment and was traveling in the underground cave on her own. The light from her watch could only cover a limited distance. Luckily, she and Mo Fan had made some markings along the walls, indicating the specific location she was at relative to the surface. Li Man, have you arrived at your position? Mo Fan's distorted voice appeared in her ear. Li Man readjusted her earphone and responded, I'm underground now, but the signal is weak. I can't hear what you're trying to say. Time is running out. The giant lizards are almost done with their daily public square dance, said Mo Fan. They had to make their move when the giant lizards were away taking a sunbathe, thus they would not have enough time to wait until each step was completed. They had to move simultaneously. Start luring the creatures. I'll be there soon, Li Man said. She had just arrived at the second-to-last marking that they had put down before. She was very close to reaching her designated position. All right, I guess we have no choice. Remember, use all you have to blast it open. Mo Fan reminded her. Oh, I guess I should make the hole big enough for the two monsters to fall down here, too? Li Man asked in a calm voice. So you do have a sense of humor. Li Man's pink lips curled upward. As a matter of fact, if she were to use an advanced magic, she could easily blow a hole big enough for the two monsters. Up on the surface, Zhang Xiaohou, who had already eaten plenty of the disgusting fruits, was holding his position. He started to feel nervous when he saw that the sun was setting on the horizon. He kept on telling himself, wake the poisonous bug, bring it to the spot, wait for Li Man to blast the ground open, and drop down following the spiral. It isn't complicated at all, and not dangerous, either. Howsy, we're ready. By the way, the military's communication device is pretty impressive. You can even use it in the wild, Mo Fan's voice crackled over the comm. It's being driven by the magician's energy. We can hide our energy well, thus it won't attract the attention of the demon beasts easily, said Zhang Xiaohou. It's about time. Go and wake the little poisonous bug up. I'll wake the big lizard up, said Mo Fan. Sure thing. Zhang Xiaohou nodded as his gaze firmed. He quickly scanned this section of the swamp, with its extraordinary colors. The swamp here was separated from the big swamp in the valley. It was the territory of the poisonous bug. Both of the demon beasts would usually mind their own business. Zhang Xiaohou had eaten the fruits that were an antidote to its poison. He boldly went up to the swamp and cast Earth Wave, stirring the mud like a giant tide. Come on, don't force me to use an intermediate magic on you. Zhang Xiaohou yelled at the swamp. As long as the water was mixed with mud, Zhang Xiaohou could control it with his magic. As a result, the previously calm swamp was stirred into great chaos, throwing the mud everywhere. Zhang Xiaohou was told that the poisonous bug was quite a tyrant. It would surely chase after those disturbing its cozy nap, although Zhang Xiaohou had no idea why Mo Fan knew that. Finally, a response. Zhang Xiaohou stared at the tide of mud that was rising up high into the air in a spectacular manner. The mud rolled like black boiling water, splashing wildly into the surroundings, before pouring back down on the ground in front of Zhang Xiaohou like a downpour. A long body sprang out from the muddy water. At a single glance, it looked like a giant python had whipped up from the bottom of the water into the air. However, the body had giant limbs on both sides. A pair of the giant limbs extended out onto the surface. There was a 30-meter-tall tree right on the shore there, and it turned out to be the same height as the giant limbs. 1 pair, 2 pairs, 3 pairs, 7 pairs. Half of its body was still buried in the swamp, but there were already 14 limbs exposed. An ugly head with a pair of snapping mandibles, like a pair of giant scissors, popped up from the mud. It opened its bloody mouth wide and screamed at the tiny humans staring at it from the land. The scream was followed by a powerful gust of wind driving into Zhang Xiaohou's face with splashes of mud. Zhang Xiaohou stared at the huge creature with a blank face. Little poisonous bug? Zhang Xiaohou could feel a billion voices cursing and swearing inside him. Can anybody tell me what is little about it? I'm smaller than the hair on its leg. A centipede, a gigantic swamp centipede. Normally, a centipede would be proud of itself if it was the length of a human's finger. As for the centipede in front of him, a human was not big enough to fill the gap between its teeth. Zhang Xiaohou was utterly lost. He said to Mo Fan with a trembling voice, Brother Fan, I've woken it up. Then why aren't you running? Zhang Xiaohou almost had the urge to give up on the spot, but considering that his brother Fan would never send him to the jaws of death, he immediately tamped down the fear in his heart. Wind track, earth wave. Zhang Xiaohou cast the two speed-increasing abilities at the same time, and turned himself into a little mouse running across the mud. Luckily he was already a certain distance away from the little centipede. Oh no, it should be a centipede that had been cultivating for more than 1,000 years. Otherwise, he would have been crushed into pieces instantly when the beast made its entrance. Zhang Xiaohou was incredibly fast on his feet, way faster than the average intermediate magician. He knew how to stack the wind tracks to increase his speed further, and knew how to use Earth Wave to fill in the gaps between the wind tracks to make sure that he was consistently at his highest speed possible. The problem was, there was no way two legs were able to outrun a gigantic centipede who had 14 giant limbs on only half of its body. Zhang Xiaohou felt like he was dead meat. He did not dare to turn around, but continued to sprint forward with tears running down his cheeks. The mud rolled with such great force that the momentum of it hitting the stacked rocks nearby was enough to shatter them into pieces. The giant centipede chased after the human fiercely. It looked like the creature did not have any ranged attacks, otherwise, a single spit would have easily killed Zhang Xiaohou. Chapter 340 The Real Appearance, Xuanwu Giant Lizard. How's he? Is it still chasing after you? I don't know. I can still hear it. Zhang Xiaohou was actually not in the mood to talk. Take a peek. While running, Zhang Xiaohou slowly turned his head around. With a single glance, Zhang Xiaohou realized that his vision was almost filled up by the giant centipede, especially its ugly, savage head. A few more glances would cause his scalp to turn numb. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohou noticed something important. Although the giant centipede was chasing madly after him at a crazy pace, its body, which was around 100 meters long, was now totally exposed as it leapt across a ridge of stone on the ground. The first half of its body had 14 limbs, but the other half had none. It was not because the giant centipede was the product of some weird mutation. Zhang Xiaohou could clearly see the cuts and bruises on the second half of its body, which implied that it had somehow lost half of its limbs. It was a centipede with half of its limbs amputated. No wonder the beast had not eaten him alive yet. Due to the lack of limbs on the second half of its body, it had completely lost its ability to maintain its balance. It kept on crashing to the sides, either gouging out huge ravines or sliding into the muddy pools. It would be agile at times, but slow as an ox the rest. Brother Fan, this giant centipede is injured too. Zhang Xiaohou blurted out in excitement. I knew Brother Fan wouldn't let me down. Be careful. Although that guy has no ranged attacks, you will be in grave danger if it manages to slam into you with its head. Oh, I forgot to mention, too. The antidote fruits that I had you eat before, they aren't really fruits. They were the eggs that the giant centipede laid. Therefore, it should be able to smell the scent of its kids on your breath. Don't worry about it not chasing after you, just keep on running, Mo Fan replied, while panting heavily on the other side of the comms. Zhang Xiaohou was stunned for a moment. Worry my ass. A disgusted feeling welled up inside him. Zhang Xiaohou never thought Mo Fan would set his teammates up like this. It turned out that none of his words were true, apart from the fact that the thing could be used as an antidote. Crap, the ground ahead is running out. Zhang Xiaohou realized there was a huge mud pool in front of him. He would need to travel more than 200 meters across the water before reaching land. He took a glance at the giant centipede chasing after him, which was only 100 meters away. Holy crap, it was pretty much just the length of itself away. There was no way Zhang Xiaohou would be stopping now. He only hoped that the mud was viscous enough and had a high percentage of earth element. Otherwise, it would be the end of things if he ended up sinking into the muck. Clenching his teeth, Zhang Xiaohou maintained his speed and continued to cast wind track and earth wave at the same time as he made his way across the mud. The wind track formed a lengthy airflow across the 200-meter-long pool of mud. The earth wave surged forward and used the mud to create a path. Zhang Xiaohou manipulated the mud in the water and forced the lumps to gather rapidly, quickly contracting and forming a muddy path across the surface of the pool. Boss Zhang Kong had told him before that if a wind element user was fast enough, he could sprint across the surface of water. The viscosity of mud was significantly higher than water. Surely it would be easier to run across it than water, right? Zhang Xiaohou had completely put his life at stake trying to pull off such a difficult move. A unique glow wrapped around his legs as he prepared to use his magic boots, which served as his final trump card. He was doing everything he could just to stop his legs from being caught in the mud. Oh wow 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 wow! Zhang Xiaohou sprinted across the pool while screaming at the top of his lungs. A clear path surfaced in the middle of the pool, splitting the muck aside. If it weren't for the visually dominating centipede chasing right after him, he would not mind showing his new move to his friends. Brother Fan, I'm almost there. Fuck me. Zhang Xiaohou saw a giant black moving mountain rising ahead of him, just as he was about to reach his destination. Zhang Xiaohou had only managed to see the rough silhouette of the creature the other day, as the place was too dark. Now, under the last of the sunlight, he could finally see the true appearance of the giant lump of meat. He could feel his heart shattering into pieces from shock. It was an Xuanwu giant lizard. The Xuanwu giant lizard had a fairly flat giant shell on its back. The hunter group had mistakenly assumed it to be even ground when they stepped onto it. The body of the Xuanwu giant lizard was even bigger. The whole swamp was trembling as it moved. Zhang Xiaohou was still a distance away from the gigantic beast, but it felt like it was right in front of him due to its overwhelming presence. This guy was way more terrifying than the giant centipede. Brother Fan, are you sure they will be fighting one another? Zhang Xiaohu's throat throbbed as he spoke in a rather unbelieving tone. I've fed at the centipede's legs. They should be fighting soon, Mo Fan responded in a confident tone. Brother Fan, what exactly have you been doing at this place? Zhang Xiaohou felt like dropping to his knees in front of Mo Fan. They were both severely injured, and I found a way to get rid of the centipede's poison, so it won't pose any threat to us. The Xuanwu giant lizard's movements are slow due to its injury. Otherwise, we would be dead by now, Mo Fan replied. As the two drew closer to one another, the two giant creatures which could stir the swamp into great chaos were on the verge of crashing into one another. However, between them stood the humans who had infuriated them. Their first priority was to get rid of the pests, before handling the conflict between themselves. As such, the two giant beasts totally sealed off their escape routes. They would talk later when the two bold little mice were dealt with. Li Man, the vortex, blast the layer of rocks open now. Mo Fan quickly screamed to Li Man through the communication device, who was standing by in position. Zhang Xiaohou had arrived at the little sandbank. The only thing he could do now was to pray for the vortex to appear in time. Right below the sandbank where Mo Fan and Zhang Xiaohou were racing, Li Man shone her torch at the moist layer of rocks above her. Since it was possible for the mud to block the hole after it was blasted open, Li Man had to wait until the two were in position before making her move. Plummeting rays. A blinding golden constellation spread out elegantly in Li Man's surroundings. Li Man had no intention of preserving her energy. She instantly cast an advanced magic. She had to blow the layer of rocks open in one blow. Any further delay would result in the two little humans being eaten alive by the two monsters. Plummeting rays was the advanced spell of the light element. More than 100 rays of light were summoned after the constellation was completed. If the magician altered the shape of the rays into sharp weapons, they would turn into powerful piercing laser beams. The plummeting rays turned into countless light arrows under Li Man's control. The arrows were as dense as a heavy downpour, penetrating the layer of rocks from beneath. The rocks were shattered almost instantly. The rain of arrows soon created a 10-meter wide hole on the surface. It was just about the right size, as the mud would not fill the hole quickly, while preventing the two monsters from breaking through. What's going on? Li Man frowned all of a sudden. She had cast an advanced spell, as she was worried that the layer of rocks was thicker than she had expected. To her surprise, the light arrows seemed to have trouble penetrating the entire layer. It doesn't make sense. The rocks shouldn't be this solid. She was already using an advanced spell. Sis, please tell me you're not pulling a prank on us? Where's the vortex you promised us? We're doomed. Zhang Xiaohu's pleading voice blurted out from the communication device, followed by the shrieks of the two monsters. Something's weird about the rocks. I see, the earth element soul seed. The soul seed, flowing mud. It's hidden right in the layer of rocks, exclaimed Lee Man. Are you for real? What are you so excited for? Mo Fan's scream burst out from the device. Screw the soul seed. Blast it open right now with all you have.